sleep stages are defined by the frequency of the brain waves. So by the deep sleep, it's called stages 3 or 4, also called slow wave sleep. So if you're actually looking at the EEG, the brain waves will actually be very slow and very deep. Now, an interesting thing happens at the end of the first stage, and we're talking about normal stages of sleep now, each lasting about 90 minutes or an hour and a half. So you've gone from stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 is the deepest. And then there's what is called paradoxical sleep. And that's where the lightest stage of sleep is, because you're sort of slightly waking up. But this is when rapid eye movement occurs. And if you wake a person up at that particular time, they can describe a detailed dream. If you wake them up at any time, there's still something going on they can report, but the detailed dreams are more likely associated with rapid eye movement or REM sleep. And during that stage, an interesting thing happens. The voluntary muscles become paralyzed. So the person is actually, if they wake up at that point, it's a horrible feeling because you can't move. In males, there's erections, and in females, there is vaginal lubrication. And body temperature drops significantly. Now, that's what occurs during the paradoxical sleep, because it's a light stage of sleep, but it feels like it's the deepest stage. And REM sleep is essential for normal human functioning the following day. It's believed that deep sleep, or stages 3 and 4 sleep, are the most restorative stages of sleep. We need sleep of a certain amount in order to function normally during the daytime. And if your stage 3 and 4 sleep is impaired, you're not going to feel rejuvenated. Now, more recently it's been discovered that people who snore loudly and have difficulty breathing during the night, gasping for breath, they're more likely to have what we call sleep apnea. And that sleep apnea often occurs in the early stages of sleep. And apnea means the stopping of breathing. So a person may stop breathing hundreds of times during the night. There's an oxygen deficit then, so the blood is not carrying the oxygen you need. And that's associated with brain changes, memory changes, physical health problems like heart disease and high blood pressure. So it's very important, and many of our soldiers returning from combat seem to have sleep apnea, and we're not sure what that connection is right now. But the study of sleep in a sleep lab is indicated for anybody who snores loudly and who has a lot of daytime drowsiness. I can often make the diagnosis of sleep apnea by walking into the waiting room, and the soldier who is sound asleep sitting in the waiting room is the person who's most likely having sleep apnea, because they're trying to catch up on their sleep. So just a quick review of that. We know the stages of sleep, and those stages are repeated all during the night. Stages 1 through 4, REM sleep, stages 1 through 4 again, so 3 or 4 of those stages occur. Now, there are sometimes we call people long sleepers and short sleepers. Some people can get by normally with 3 or 4 hours of sleep at night and function normally. Some can't function normally unless they sleep 8 or 9 hours a night. So it depends upon the person. So based on that information, we know that everyone dreams, and the dreaming occurs during the rapid eye movement. Nightmares occur during other stages of sleep. And so our soldiers have nightmares that impair their sleep, and they never get to that restful stage, restorative stage of sleep, which is a major problem, because sleep-deprived individuals are much more likely to be angry, annoyed, irritable, and anxious. So that's a problem there.
Can you talk about why a soldier would feel afraid to go into deep sleep because of the...
Yes. Many soldiers are afraid to sleep at night because they feel vulnerable, and they feel that they're in danger most all the time, and most danger at night when they're asleep. So many soldiers have weapons. They're placed under the bed, under the pillow, in the bed, nearby, sometimes a weapon in every room. And if they wake up during the night, as they often do, many, many times during the night, they'll get up and check the perimeter all around the house to make sure everything is safe. So I've often thought that if soldiers had kind of a step-down unit that could come from combat into a facility where people were on guard at night while they're at home, on a base or in their own home, then they would begin to get normalized on their sleep. So we haven't done that as yet. Now also, some people suffer from what is known as restless legs. That's a separate issue, and restless legs means they're moving their legs a lot during the night, and that interferes with normal sleep. That can be treated in most cases with medication. Now, if we talked about sleep hygiene, which is very important, the brain responds particularly to light. So if you're thinking about going to bed, it's very valuable to begin to turn down the lights and not be in the presence of bright lights for at least an hour before you go to bed. The brain is also responsive to concentration. So if you're concentrating on something that's very conflictual, perhaps balancing your checkbook or paying your bills or doing something that requires a lot of attention, it's hard to turn that off. So it's sort of like a machine that you need to wind down and let it slow down. Turn down the lights, turn down your concentration, and get ready to go to bed. For people who have trouble sleeping, naps are very bad. Naps interfere with normal sleep, so it's very important to avoid napping. It's also important to use the bedroom only for sleep or sex, but not for watching television, reading, that sort of thing. Always have the room associated with sleeping and relaxing things. Some people find it very helpful to get up at night if they wake up. Don't lie in bed and toss and turn for hours. It's best to get up and do something monotonous. With a dull light, try to do some dull reading or listening to soothing music. There are some tapes for calming down the nervous system by listening to relaxation tapes. That's important. It appears that serotonin, which is one of the neurotransmitters, is very important to sleep. You can't take serotonin directly by mouth or by any other way, but you can take its chemical precursors. So there are certain foods. As a matter of fact, all of the neurotransmitters are made in the body from foods that we take in. There are certain foods that are high in tryptophan, and tryptophan is converted to serotonin in the brain. So foods like malted milk, turkey, warm milk, a small amount, say a cup before bedtime, will allow the body to produce serotonin from the tryptophan in that food. Now there are 3 sleeping pills that have been approved by the FDA to help with sleep. And those sleeping pills are not addictive, but almost everything else is addictive. In other words, to take a tranquilizer, they have a high tendency to cause dependency. But Ambien, Lunesta, and Roserum are 3 of the newer ones. The other neurotransmitter involved in sleep is called melatonin. The melatonin that's purchased over the counter is really bovine melatonin made from cattle, and since there is this mad cow disease, I don't recommend purchasing melatonin. And also the melatonin itself is not controlled by the FDA, so it's a dangerous thing to take. But a short course, sometimes 2 or 3 weeks of a hypnotic or sleeping pill may be useful to help a person fall asleep and to stay asleep. The diet in general is important, and exercise is extremely important. So staying mentally, physically, and spiritually fit and getting a regular amount of exercise is very valuable to sleep, especially if it's done early in the day, but not later than 6 p.m. So your body gets revved up with exercise, and it interferes with sleep if you exercise before you go to bed. It's better exercise in the morning or in the afternoon. I use exercise as a prescription. I've had some patients who were severely depressed, and I would have them come from the bed to the bike and exercise as just they would like taking a dose of medication, and have them do that 2 or 3 times a day. Exercise is a very good hypnotic. It's not good to eat a heavy meal, of course, before bedtime, but it is good to have a snack, especially if it contains tryptophan. Now also, some people find a continuous sound to be soothing to help them sleep, such as the sound of a fan or a white noise machine, or I use a sound producing machine that has a waterfall involved, and I listen to that during the night at a low volume. I do that in part because I live in an apartment complex and the people above me are noisy in the nighttime. So sleep is important. It's something worth working on. And I also recommend that you use, you being any soldier, anybody with a sleep problem, that you keep a diary ideally a tape recorder by your bed, and dictate your dreams into that tape recorder so they can be brought into therapy. It's also good to bring the nightmares into therapy because they can often provide significant amount of information. I look at dreams as a psychological biopsy. It's equivalent to taking a small amount of tissue and telling what's going on in the whole body. So if you look at the dream as a segment or a biopsy of the psychology of the person, it's often very revealing because it does seem to fall into patterns, and it's important to talk about one's dreams. So sleep can be and should be a very peaceful time and a restorative time, and if it's disturbed by a sleeping partner who snores loudly, or extraneous noises, or by other things, they need to be corrected.